Okay, good day, good afternoon, or whatever time you are watching this video. Welcome sa mga bagong dating lang, and welcome back sa mga nakapanood na ng ating video related to basic competency and local treasury examination. And this time, this about my public sharing related to the possible items or questions that will be asked by the BCLTE, especially on April 24, 2022 examination, and of course a preparation for some of you who will take on October 23, 2022. So this is the part 2. So I'd like to go straight to the items related to specialized or technical area na 75%, the business and local taxes. So I'd like to share with you mga possible items that will be asked, and I want you to familiarize with the following. So with that, let's start with the tax on transfer of real property ownership. Pag probinsya po, 50% of 1 based on the fair market value or the acquisition cost and computation, whichever is higher. Sa city naman po ay 75% of 1%. Sa tax on business ng printing and publication at saka franchise tax, pareho po itong calculation nila. So sa province, nangyayari, pag nagbabayad kayo doon ay 50% of 1% based on your gross annual receipts from the preceding year, and then 75% of 1% for the city. And in case naman po, if a newly started business, the computation is 1/20 of 1% of the capital investment, lalo na kung magbabayad po kayo sa province. The rate of tax on business subject to the excise, value added, or percentage tax under the National Internal Revenue Code as amended shall not exceed 2% of gross sales or receipts of the preceding calendar year. That is the computation. Paano naman po computin po itong rate of community tax payable by individual o yung tinatawag nating sedula pag individual po yung magbabayad? It is expected that the 5 peso as the basic tax, and for every 1,000 sa salary ninyo or income nyo in a year, is i-divide po itong 1,000 pesos times 1 peso. About naman po sa corporations that will get a CEDULA or community tax certificate, or the so-called juridical persons liable for the payment of the community tax, the basic tax is 500 pesos, and then there is an annual additional tax for every income or gross receipts sa corporations. There is 5,000 to the annual income. The annual income is divided by 5,000 times 2 pesos. And who are those community tax exemptions na hindi mo pwedeng pakuhanan? Are the diplomatic and consular representatives and the transient visitors when their stay in the Philippines does not exceed 3 months. So tapos na po tayo sa pinaka-common na business and local taxes. Let's talk about the regulatory fees charged and local for and charges and local economic enterprises. So let us be reminded that the share in the process of the tobacco excise tax, especially for their respective beneficiaries, provinces shall only receive 15% of the excise taxes on locally manufactured Virginia type of cigarettes. And let's talk about the rule of the treasurers in the local government enterprises operations. First, advise the local chief executive. Second, advise the sanggunian in the enactment of ordinances. Third, take charge of the collections. Fourth, ensure that payments are made into duly certified and approved disbursement vouchers. 5. Advise the local chief executive delinquencies of government enterprise. Recommend collector. Maintain records of payment of market stallholders. And last, you have to prepare a periodic financial report. Those are the 8 rule of the treasurers in the local government enterprise operations. Now let's talk about the Sangguniang Bayan. Sangguniang Bayan may issue licenses for the operation of fishing vessels of 3 tons or less. The city or municipal engineering office shall be responsible for the issuance of building and other permits and the computation of the correct regulatory fees. Under the ordinances of Housing and Land Use Regulatory Board, there is a fee for zoning or locational clearance in a... Yan. The issuance of licenses to tricycle drivers and charging of fees for the registrations of tricycles are under the jurisdiction of the Land Transportation Office. The certificate of transfer shall be issued to the purchaser or new owner upon payment of a transfer certificate fee in the amount fixed by the ordinance. The certificate of authority shall be effective for a period valid up to 2 years, lalo na pag ito ay lalo pag nag-apply po ang isang barangay micro business enterprises. The Bangko Sentral of the Pilipinas at the Securities and Exchange Commissions are authorized to issue the provinces, cities, and municipalities are authorized to issue bonds, debentures, securities, collaterals, notes, and other obligations. Pero, subject po siya sa rules and regulation ni BSP at saka ni SEC. Let's talk about the LGU credit financing. This is about LGU credit financing. Let's talk about the different types of contractual agreements. The build and transfer. Pag nabasa niyo po mga salitang construct, turn over to the government, that is considered build and transfer. Another contractual agreement na mababasa mo naman po sa kanyang description ay construct, turn over to the sponsor agency, and unless agreement, that is build, less, and transfer. How about build, own, and operate? Basically, mababasa mo po sa kanyang description itong construct, own, operate. Paano naman po itong build, transfer, and operate? Its description is meron itong build an infrastructure facility on a turnkey basis. How about the contract, add, and operate? Basically, there is this words or descriptions under the authorized to add, operate the expanded project over the agreed franchise period. ROT or rehabilitate, operate, and transfer. May mababasa po tayo sa description na to refurbish, operate, and turned to the government. How about this ROO or the rehabilitate, own, and operate? Well, basically, refurbish, operate, and impose ownership. Let's talk about the interlocal government unit loans, grants, and subsidies. Upon approval of the majority of all members of the Sanggunian concerned and in amounts not exceeding their surplus funds, extend loan, grants, or subsidies to other local government units. The President, through any government financial or any lending institution, will lend to any province, city, municipality, or barangay the proceeds of loans contracted with the foreign financial institution under or other international funding agencies. Municipal Development Fund, provinces, cities, and municipalities may tap for loans through agreements with the Department of Finance, setting the terms and conditions of the loan. The President, he shall exercise general supervision over local government. We are now talking about the management of local treasury services. Now, let's talk about the creation of province. Basically, ang ano natin dito ay itong tinatawag na IPL, Income, Population, and Land. So, let's familiarize with the creation of province. 20 million for the income, 2,000 square kilometer for the area, for the land, and then the 250,000 the population. The city, 100 million, 100 square kilometer, and 150,000 population. Municipality, 2,500,000 pesos, 50 square kilometer, and 25,000 population. How about the creation of the highly urbanized cities? It's about 50 million for the income, then 200,000 inhabitants. I'd like to inform you again that the appointment of a treasurer and shall be mandatory po sa lahat ng province. Again, for the appointment of a treasurer, it is expected that, and it is mandatory for the PCM, province, city, and municipality, the assistant treasurer shall be optional. No person shall be appointed treasurer unless must have acquired experience in treasury or accounting services for, pag gusto mo mag-apply sa city or province, at least 5 years, for municipality, at least 3 years. And aside from the treasury or accounting services, pwede din naman po kung may experience kayo in budgeting, auditing, and assessment services. Ang tawag po sa acting treasurer is designated by the proper authority to discharge fully the powers and responsibility as head of the province, city, and municipal treasurer as a result of permanent vacancy for the position. The officer in charge is temporary capacity to avert paralyzation of the day-to-day operation. Treasurer is temporary absent. The local treasurer is known being certifies the availability of fund. Sino naman po yung nagsicertify for the existence of appropriation? It is the local budget officer and someone who obligated the said appropriation and check if kompleto yung mga document attachment is the local accountant. It is mandatory for every province, city, or municipality to create a so-called local finance committee, such as the local treasurer, local planning development officer, and a local budget officer. There is this so-called the bids and awards committee wherein each province, city, and municipality decides the winning bids and questions of awards on procurement property and services under the Republic Act 9184. Membership of the local treasurer in the BAC is not mandatory. The BAC members shall be at least 5 but not more than 7, and who shall be personnel occupying plantilla position of the LGU. Last item, let us be reminded that the Bureau of Local Government Finance shall exercise administrative and technical supervision and coordination over the treasury and assessment operations of local government. It shall also provide consultative services and technical assistance to local treasurer as well as administrative matters on the recruitment, selection, and appointment of a local treasurer and assistant local treasurer. And with that po, sana ay na-enjoy ninyo yung tinatawag nating BCLTE review, recap, and reward. Again, congratulations!